Think only happy thoughts today.
This is what's interesting, because people run behind labels, and that's why I want to puke when I hear, well, he's a left centrist or the right-hand progressive. Shut up. But here's the deal. Now, here's what I want you to do. After we conclude this off the recording, I want you to give me links to what you read. Okay.
Okay.
Now, I've also found, while you were going, the story by the New Yorker about the whatever their names are, Koch brothers, and they promote themselves as libertarians and limited government, and that's supposedly what the Tea Party's doing. But it's a dressing. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a libertarian, but you're not a libertarian.
No, not really. It's just like Hitler and the Nazis were trying to hide behind this pseudo-socialism. They never intended to enact socialism. They were in the back pocket of the most powerful industrialists and bankers in Germany, and some of the most powerful industrialists and bankers in the United States and some of the other countries in Europe. They were totally, right wing, and the whole idea is a power grab. We're going to. I'll tell you what they are. I could invent a new stupid term here. They're feudalist. They're advocates of feudalism. What they want is a world run of, by, and for corporations, a corporatocracy. If you like that. But when you get down to it, I mean, the term fascism, just Mussolini invented that, and it was all about the Roman Empire. I mean, the fasces was nothing more than a bundle of sticks with an axe head sticking in the middle of it, and it was a symbol of Roman authority. It was a symbol of the Roman Empire, and the person that had the fasces was, an emissary of the Roman government, of the Roman Empire.
But here's what is the canard, and this is what I didn't get early on, and that is I always looked at corporations as being subservient to the government. I said, they're just businesses. What the hell are they going to do? I didn't realize because
they run the government.
Well, yeah, and I'll say as it pertains to the United States, once the robber barons grabbed their power and made their alliances with their kind across the pond in Europe, especially with the Rothschilds, I mean, they went about the buying of government. And so, when we talk about corporate fascism, actually, Larry, corporations are the government. Mm-hmm. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, we're in a corporatocracy. We have been for an awful long time.
So I never had an argument with you about that, because it's like, well, whatever you want to call them, however they may seem business-oriented and out of the fray, it could not be anything further from the truth, that they are very much the fray, but they now have just rented the government to go out and show people that, that there is some kind of political process, and they allow those whores, and I am calling them whores, they are worse than any other vile piece of shit in this country. At least with prostitutes, you get what you pay for. Them, but
these guys don't put out.
No, they don't put out. Well, they do. They actually do screw you, but not in the manner you would wish. Yeah, but and that's what infuriates me, because they go up there and they lie and they put all this kazinga out there, and they are nothing but little sock puppets for these guys.
Well, we've got two main parties, and they keep it that way. They don't allow a third party to come into existence, because what they've got now is just controlled opposition, between the two parties. Anybody that goes into and wants to become a candidate for either one of the major political parties has to be vetted, and neither one of these parties represents the common man. Neither one of them represents the average ordinary American. Both parties are controlled by corporations, pure and simple. That's simplistic, but it's really true. They won't allow a third party to come into existence because they don't want any they just choose. It's kind of like a revolving door, like which one of our fascist party members do we want? Do we want fascist light? We want the Democrats this time, or do we want fascist heavy, the Republicans? But it's still, you're getting fascism either way you look at it.
Exactly. But what you said is true in the sense of the reason why this Tea Party, which I was surprised didn't become its own party, but now I understand that wasn't the point. The point was to get them into the equation somehow, some way. But, I mean, for all intents and purposes, they'll be assimilated and they'll still only be two because it's easier to control.
Yeah.
Also, the reason why this isn't a grassroots movement is take a look at the characters that have been in the Libertarian Party that's been around for a much longer time.
Mm-hmm.
They can't get out there.
No.
They can't get a seat at the table necessarily.
It's a joke. I mean, they run every election. They get 50,000 votes or whatever it is in a presidential election, and I guess they go home and congratulate themselves that they're making progress.
I mean, the last third-party candidate, and of course that was manipulation too, and that was Perot.
Right.
I mean, they had Nader, whom I voted for the last time I voted in 2000. That was just, I don't know, it was just like the same old tired crap. You know, the Green Party, this party, that party. That's the last time I voted because I realized all you're voting for is garbage anyway, so don't worry about it. And in times gone by, the last one I can remember was, what's his face? Oh, man, the bespectacled guy, John, what's his name?
Oh, yeah.
Anderson.
Yeah, Anderson.
All right, now, he said some good things, but you see, I didn't know the way the world ran back then. Now that I think of it, he did say the good things, but that doesn't get you elected.
No.
And that's why
No.
with the Tea Party, I mean, they've been around a very short time, and all of a sudden, bang, they're at the front rail. How the heck did that happen if it wasn't orchestrated? No grassroots movement can do that. That's baloney.
No.
So they're there for a reason.
Yeah.
Now,
the Koch brothers, they want to bring about a total corporate state. They aren't there yet. They're not there yet. But they want to get there, and they're moving. They're moving in that direction. I mean, it's going to be their vision of America is going to be a total fascist state. It'll be corporatism.
But isn't this exactly how things are done when they talk about Hegelian dialectics and otherwise?
Right.
Here, the New Yorker article talks about them being libertarians and anti-government, which is what the Tea Party's saying. Less government. Okay, and then less government in that vacuum, who fills it?
Right. Exactly.
So my point is, they come on as libertarians, and they are exactly the opposite.
Right. It's always a deception. And that's the way Satan works, and that's who's behind it all, Biz. You know that. I know that. We're trying to convince others.
No, but isn't it interesting, Larry?
Voice crying in the wilderness,
But
it's just the way it is, and it's coming down in this country. It's finally going to get down to a real fascist state. I mean, we've been moving toward that for an awful long time in this country. There's been a very large fascist element amongst the corporate leaders, the most wealthy and powerful people in this. We've talked a lot about the Bushes and the Harrimans and the Fords and the DuPonts, et cetera, et cetera. These people are all fascists and have been. We've got an oligarchy that runs this country, and it's going toward fascism. I mean, it's headed that way, and I don't see any way to stop it. But I wish to God I could, but I just don't think it's any way to stop it.
But this continuum makes perfect sense if you're willing to accept Scripture, okay? Mm-hmm. And here's the thing that is not necessarily spelled out in Scripture that we've talked about in others, and I find no fault in it. And that is when the Lord's people, when the tribes said to Jehovah, the divine law thing ain't working. Mm-hmm. We don't really, well, it is working, but we don't like it, and we don't want the judge system. So, kind of like we have kings. Yeah, okay, fine. Here's your monarchs.
Yeah.
But at that point, here's what I'm seeing, and I can't see any fault in this, and that is what rises up then. It's Satan in the breach. Mm-hmm. When there's a vacuum or when there's a rebellion, Satan fills it, and he filled it with mercantilism. Mm-hmm. Which got rid of the barter trade system and went into something else. And mercantilism, and I'm not saying nothing is good and bad other than the way it's used. But Satan used mercantilism and used the actual tangible money to create a banking system and a business system that rules the world. And that's exactly what the British East India Company was about. Mm-hmm. And you heard me say this, but the thing is, if you continue along these lines, what do you think Babylon is except a mercantile system?
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, and that's why when the Lord decides, He's going to destroy it.
It's also a religious system. And what we're going to have is a one world religion. And what we've got coming in Europe is a merger one thing that people don't ever like to talk about with fascism is that fascism is not just the merger of the government and the corporations, but it's also a merger of the government, the corporations, and organized religion, and that's coming. And you see that. That's another thing. You've got this right-wing pseudo-Christianity in this country, which is mostly Protestant, quote-unquote Protestant. And, of course, in Europe, you've got the Roman Catholic Church, and you've got the rise of the Holy Roman Empire one more time. And the Fourth Reich is on its way. I mean, we've shown that, over and over again. And Germany is now starting to dominate Europe. It's going to be Germany on steroids. You're going to have a united Europe. You're not going to have individual nations anymore, except as language groups, essentially. And you've got the Roman Catholic Church moving in that. And think about it. You've got Joseph Ratzinger is now the Pope. Joey Rats, as we like to call him. Now our Pope, and he is a German Nazi. The man was a member of the Wehrmacht in World War II. He was a member of the Hitler Youth. He was he fought against the Allies. He was in an anti-aircraft battery. The man was a German soldier during the Second World War, and is known to have been indoctrinated with Nazi ideals. You think this guy is, has the best interest of the people at heart? It's just,
I would even give him
just amazing.
I'd even give him a pass as being a soldier, and I'll tell you why. There's a gentleman that I knew who's probably gone now, a good stone worker, and he grew up in the Sudetenland, German speaking, but in the Czech, what was now back to the Czech Republic. Well, he got conscripted by Adolf, and he was a pilot, and he wanted no part of it, but he also knew what was in second place. I
can understand that. Yeah, but the whole Hitler Youth thing too. You got to figure that this guy's been indoctrinated with these doctrines.
Yes, well, look, the thing that for me, what indicts him more is that he had the role as this is great, the office of the Inquisitor.
Right,
great.
Right. No, he's quite a character.
But I would even say
quite a scary character, as a matter of fact.
He looks like Satan's sitting inside a monkey suit.
He really does.
But remember, John Paul II is what, Carl Wojtyla, whatever you want to call him. Wind up in IG Farben. To me, I got more of a problem with John Paul II than Joey Ratzer.
Yeah.
However,
I got a problem with both of them.
Well, but the thing, and again, I know we're getting into this thing ecclesiastically, but do not tell me these people are infallible. That is an insult to Jesus Christ. The Vicar of Christ. Who told you that? Well, we did. We made it up. I got
something here that I wanted to cover today. I hope we got a little time to do so, and wanted to talk about the Oklahoma City bombings and the Nazi connection there, which was significant. And I don't think people bring that out a lot. And I think the Oklahoma City bombings were kind of a forerunner of 9/11.
You going with Andrea Strassmeyer?
Yeah, I want to talk about that just a little bit. This is from the book The Beast Reawakens by Martin Lee, which is probably one of the best books I've read on the subject of the reemergence of fascism. And he says, McVeigh also read, sold, and gave away copies of the Turner Diaries, the novel that had galvanized members of the Order to undertake their looting and killing spree. Using a long-distance calling card that he got from the Spotlight, McVeigh telephoned Elohim City, a 400-acre Christian identity encampment on the Arkansas-Oklahoma border, two weeks before the Oklahoma City bombing. According to Robert Miller, head of Elohim City, McVeigh asked to speak with Andreas Strassmeyer, a former German Army lieutenant in his mid-30s who handled security duties and led paramilitary training at the white supremacist enclave. As for why he chose to live in Elohim City since 1991, where churchgoers spoke in tongues and participated in quasi-religious hate rituals, Strassmeyer would say only, "I was attracted to the alternative lifestyle." For his part, Strassmeyer has maintained that he has no recollection of receiving a phone call from McVeigh, but the German security expert admitted that he met McVeigh a year and a half earlier at a gun show in Tulsa, where they swapped weapons and addresses. That's as far as it went, according to Strassmeyer, who insisted he had no further dealings with McVeigh. Strassmeyer's version of events have been disputed by Carol Howell, a paid undercover informant for the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, ATF. Howell claims that McVeigh, using the alias Tim Tuttle, visited Strassmeyer at Elohim City on several occasions. Other guests known to have frequented Strassmeyer's home include his beer-drinking buddy, Dennis Mahon, the Oklahoma-based Klansman who lit crosses in a reunified Germany. Strassmeyer also hung out at Mahon's home in Tulsa. Mahon's connection to Strassmeyer was acknowledged by both men and corroborated by Tulsa-based ATF snitch Howell. As Howell tells it, prior to the 1995 bombing, she videotaped Strassmeyer, Mahon, and other U.S. neo-Nazis in Oklahoma talking about plans to blow up a federal building. Among the targets mentioned were the Tulsa IRS headquarters and a federal building in Oklahoma City. Howell says she passed along this tip to her ATF handlers. ATF officials have since confirmed that they received regular reports from Howell prior to the Oklahoma City attack, but apparently Howell's warning of an impending bombing were vague and muddled, hence the government took no precautionary measures. Strassmeyer's link to McVeigh and America's violent racialist underground are all the more curious given Andreas' high-powered family background in Germany. His grandfather was an early member of the Nazi Party. Years later, his father, Gunther Strassmeyer, served as Helmut Kohl's de facto chief of staff. A top Christian Democratic official in Berlin, Gunther was also a close friend and advisor to the chancellor. When the Berlin Wall opened in November 1989, they celebrated together in the streets. In 1991, Andreas Strassmeyer's American attorney, the ubiquitous Kurt Lyons, visited his client's parents at their plush residence in Berlin. How nice. Lyons assured Gunther Strassmeyer that his son was doing well in the United States. It was Lyons who helped arrange for Andreas to come to America in the first place. Lyons also introduced his young German friend to the folks at Elohim City. On April 18, 1995, the day before the Oklahoma City attack, Kirk Lyons' North Carolina law office received a 15-minute phone call from Timothy McVeigh, who again was using an alias. McVeigh had already cased the federal building in Oklahoma City. The militia movement went on high alert on the second anniversary of the Waco raid. That's when McVeigh chose to attack, according to a federal indictment, which left open the possibility of a wider conspiracy involving others unknown. ATF informant Howell has gone so far as to peg Andreas Strassmeyer as the prime instigator of the bombing. She alleges that Strassmeyer exerted an extraordinary influence over McVeigh. Strassmeyer, who has since moved back to his parents' house in Berlin, denies any involvement in the Oklahoma City massacre. Federal officials went to great lengths to downplay McVeigh's association with Strassmeyer and the web of intrigue at Elohim City. There are several possible reasons for this, including Strassmeyer's influential family connections in Germany. Another factor may be the U.S. government's reluctance to admit that it failed to pay heed to advance warning of the Oklahoma City attack from one or more undercover informants. A less sinister explanation is also possible. The prosecution in the McVeigh case did not want to complicate matters, so it ignored evidence of McVeigh's ties to U.S. and German neo-Nazi circles. Officially debriefed 2 days after the bombing, Howell also identified Strassmeyer's Elohim City roommate, Michael Brescia, as a mysterious John Doe II, who collaborated with McVeigh. Brescia claimed he had nothing to do with the Oklahoma attack. However, 5 women at a Tulsa nightclub have identified him as the person they saw sitting and drinking with Timothy McVeigh on April 8, 1995, 11 days before the blast. 2 other witnesses have told the FBI that they met Brescia in the company of McVeigh on several occasions. Brescia was subsequently indicted for his role as a member of the Aryan Republican Army, a fanatical neo-Nazi group that pulled off more bank robberies in the Midwest during the 1990s than Jesse James managed in his day. Another ARA extremist, Richard Lee Guthrie, was found hanged in a Kentucky jail on July 12, 1996, after he pled guilty to 19 holdups in 7 states. These armed assaults were carried out by ARA members wearing Count Dracula and Ronald Reagan masks. Money raised from the robberies were shared among various white power groups in the United States. Timothy McVeigh also participated in a series of Midwest bank robberies, according to his sister. it appears that McVeigh was part of the underground ARA cadre, which functioned in accordance with the leaderless resistance strategy promoted by militia tactician Louis Beam. The goal of this strategy was to engender anti-government violence while providing semi-public militia organizations with a built-in means of plausible deniability that would obscure any direct link to breakaway terrorist cells. Well, I know that's quite a bit of reading there, but I think it nails down the fact that there is a Nazi and a German, and I should say Nazi-German connection to the Oklahoma City bombings. And I think Andreas Strassmeyer was there for the specific purpose of leading a terrorist attack in this country. And it's just really interesting how his father, how his grandfather was one of the first members of the Nazi Party, and how his father was the guy who was the head of the reunification of Germany. And I think that tells us that the Third Reich never died, has morphed into the Fourth Reich, and that's what we're dealing with today.
All right. If I could, I'd like to bring us to a close.
Sure.
But if you would indulge me with two things. One will be what Gordon had written to me with regard to what you were talking about. Mm-hmm. But before that, I'd say this. I don't really have any problem with Germany because of Strassmeyer. I have no problem with Germany because supposedly Otto was there doing whatever he was doing. The fact he's in Germany, I mean, personally, I'm like, okay, he could have been anywhere. All right, what's the big deal? Now, that's my take. Are you telling me that at least in the last decade, or let's go back to, if you want to include the Murrah building bombing,
mm-hmm.
Which is what, 93, I believe, right?
95.
95, I'm sorry. Okay. You know what it was? It was the towers that were bombed in February 93.
Yeah.
So many bombings, so little time.
And they all seem to have connections to Nazism.
All right. So I would say the fact that there were some connections to Germany through Strassmeyer with OKC and with Ada and others for 9/11, to me, I'm saying it doesn't mean anything to me. Now, you give me your take as to whether Germany somehow, some way found itself more fertile ground for this kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, well I think the fact that the Third Reich never died, and the fact that even back in Konrad Adenauer's day, that they took a lot of old Nazi officials and put them back into the government. The fact that there was the flight capital program. I don't think we've gotten to that yet. Mm-hmm. Haven't really talked about it much, but that Martin Bormann. Arranged to have a huge amount of money taken out of Germany and put into other countries, and that was the money that became the seed money to rebuild Germany in the 1950s. That's a long and detailed thing, but it's just obvious to me that Nazism never died. The Third Reich never died. It's just gone underground. It's just morphed, and that one of the main things that they had always intended to do was to get back at their two main enemies, which was the United States and the Soviet Union. They were quite successful in destroying the Soviet Union. Not that in itself is a bad thing, but these were the two powers that brought them down, and they were determined to get rid of them so that they could eventually run the world. And I think they've successfully brought the Soviet Union down. And now they're working on us. And I'll have to flesh that out. I know it's very simplistic, maybe even sounds sensationalistic, but I think Andreas Strassmeyer, isn't it ridiculous to think about the idea of Kirk Lyons, who is a lawyer for these trashy elements, these low-level neo-Nazi types. He defends the Klan and the neo-Nazis, and he goes to Berlin and sits around drinking coffee or whatever with the Strassmeyer family. And Strassmeyer is like the chief of staff of Helmut Kohl's government. Doesn't that strike you as a little bit strange? And doesn't it strike you as a little bit strange that somebody from a powerful, influential family like Andreas Strassmeyer, would want to come over to the United States and hang out at Elohim City with a bunch of right-wing nuts? I mean, it just seems a little odd to me, unless you consider that he is an agent there to prepare these people to do what the Fourth Reich wants done, which is to foment terrorism in the United States.
No, I tell you what. Right now, as I look at it, there are so many bad viruses infecting our country that I stand back and I'm like, holy mackerel! Does anybody realize? I mean, this is going to explode into like an absolute goat's head stew, toxic stew, and and there'll be no recovering from this. I mean, I'm appalled by it. I'm amazed by it, and frankly, I'm afraid of it. Because this is all allowed to happen. Just as you said, whatever country is dismantled is supposed to be dismantled. And I don't believe for one second that Hitler was anything but a handler who brought Germany through all this and threw him on the rocks and then got his ass out of town.
I believe there's an awful lot of evidence that Hitler didn't die in the bunker, as they said. I think there's a good case to be made for it. The Soviet Union never bought that. I say Soviet Union. Stalin never bought it. And now people say, well, Stalin was a paranoid. But, yeah, he was, but he was also a brilliant man and no fool. I mean, he was insane in one sense, had a strong sense of paranoia. But I think it's the very good. I mean, one thing that struck me as odd is they had a doppelganger. They had a guy who was dressed up as Hitler and looked very similar to him. And they thought they had found Hitler's body. And then when they started examining it more carefully, they realized this man was 2 inches taller than Hitler was and had, there were several other physical anomalies that didn't match up. And as a result, they realized that this body had been put there to throw him off the case.
Larry, whenever you get into one of these things about, they try to identify the body with dental records, I'm like, forget it, see you later. Adios. I mean, and then take a look at Mussolini, who I think obviously was a jerk and he didn't realize it. Yeah. I mean, that was Mussolini getting his head baseball batted down in Italy.
Yeah.
And that's why I had to laugh, because you mean for El Duce to be involved with Hitler. I mean, wasn't it always like apparent that he was just like a tag along, Yeah. Yeah, come over here.
He was the guy that the Vatican first set up as a fascist dictator. And was kind of their, of course, with the Vatican being in Italy, what they wanted done when they put, when they put him into office, and they were part and parcel of that movement to put him in office. What they wanted done was the Lateran Treaty, which was one of the first things he did. And the Lateran Treaty set them up as a nation state again, and it also gave them quite a bit of money, which they in turn invested in Nazi Germany, what was pre-Nazi Germany.
Yeah, and I just think that you have a case where Mussolini didn't get it. I mean, he thought he was. I mean, it's like the cleanup crews and all this stuff that we talk about, with betrayals and double crossing. Mussolini thought he was going to be solid. It's like, no, you know what you really are? You're a second-tier jerk, and guess what? You're getting given up.
Well, where he really made a big mistake was siding with Hitler as far as bringing Italy into the Second World War. He waited for an awful long time before he got involved, and he shouldn't have gotten involved because Italy just did not have the wherewithal to pull it off. I mean, they were okay when they were fighting, in North Africa against people who only had rifles and spears, but they didn't have the war machine that it took, to fight advanced industrialized countries, and as a result, it led to his demise. Franco, on the other hand, was smarter than Mussolini, and he never did go throw in with the Axis powers in World War II, even though he was asked to several occasions.
And he was every bit the same as they were.
Yeah.
He just didn't get into it.
Yeah, he was smart enough to keep his country out of it, so that they didn't get overrun by the Allies.
Sometimes I wonder if Italy went in with Hitler just to protect the Vatican.
Yeah.
An expanded Vatican Guard.
Yeah. Well, the Vatican was always very chummy with Mussolini and really, especially the Jesuits. And that's another story for another time.
Yeah. No, but getting back to the whole situation about what you said, and I'm going to get on to Gordon's point.
Sure.
It seems to me, whether it's Stalin or whatever, there are people that are raised up to do a certain thing. Now, Stalin was Jesuit trained. And there's also information to the fact, and this may be true or not, that Khrushchev maybe did not lead, but was part of a gang.
I had no idea that Stalin was Jesuit trained. That's a new one on me.
Yep.
Is that?
Yes.
I mean, in Russia, or?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe so. Yes.
I didn't even know they had. Well, I guess I did know they had Jesuits there, but I was not aware of Stalin being Jesuit trained.
Oh yeah.
That is bizarre.
Early schooling. Yeah, and
yeah.
I don't know whether that takes place in the Ukraine or not. I'll have to go back. And Phelps brought that up as well. I don't find any fault in it, but it's been a long time since I looked for chapter and verse. And to support that, I will do that.
If I remember correctly, Stalin was from Georgia, not our Georgia, but Georgia in the
steppes,
Soviet Union.
Right, and that's why I'm thinking Ukraine or something like that. Yeah, I mean he wasn't from
I know that he was supposed to be a divinity student at one time, but I thought he was Orthodox. Who knows?
Put that all in parentheses. No, quotation marks. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and then he became a terrorist. I mean, kind of a weird jump there. You go from studying the Bible to carrying an AK-47 or whatever.
But
I don't know.
There's a provocative story about him being assassinated by Khrushchev and the gang.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Possible.
I don't know. I mean, it doesn't. I mean, I'm still thinking if FDR wasn't necessary.
I did hear one story about that. One of the observers, he was like a small-time guy in the Kremlin, but he said when Stalin started, they saw that he was choking and he was starting to die, having a heart attack, and was dying. He said everybody just stood back in stunned amazement, and nobody wanted to do anything.
Stunned amazement, I would have a problem with.
Yeah.
I think it's like
he said nobody wanted to make a move because they were afraid. Oh, what if he lives?
Well, I'm thinking they're sitting there going, it's working.
Yeah, that too.
No, it was like the old commercial. It's 9:15. Terry Mann's can't sleep. Do you remember that Vicks formula? And somebody did a commercial going, it's working. Mommy, I can't breathe. Yeah, it's all right. So, I mean, you get that whole thing about, look, this is nothing but spy versus spy versus spy.
Yeah.
It's intrigues versus intrigues.
Yeah.
It's double-crossing and,
The Hegelian dialectic.
Yeah, and
that word.
You see, here's the point, too, though. In a spiritual sense, and I don't mean to get wacky on people, but, you're dealing with the greatest liar in the world. He'll tell you, you my buddy, we're going to go right through this partner,
Yeah.
And it's the old story. You knew damn well I was a snake when you took me in.
Yeah, it's the way the mafia works. Guys get up to a certain level, and then, somebody wants their position and bump them off.
Well, let me just remind people, when they have played the game of Risk, just how Machiavellian or Borgian they have gotten. I don't know how many deals I made with somebody when shut. And then went ahead and said, sorry to tell you this, but you're out. So, I'm making fun of it, but it is definitely there in the human spirit. And it is a case of ambushing and double-crossing and selling something. It is just a perfect history of subterfuge and basically lying.
Mm.
Now, to tie this all up, first of all, I do want to bring in what Gordon had asked. In the world that we're facing, if we're going to get into another showdown, and maybe I'll talk about this at another time, although I have brought it up, I think there are futuristic works that are inspired, not from the good side, that kind of depict what's going to take place. It would seem to me that Europe, and let's think about this, we've laughed at monarchs, we felt their countries are like backwards, and, like we said, they take 8-hour lunches, they drink wine, they eat chocolate, and they don't do anything. But you know what? They're still standing. And it's not all so much of a throw from that famous soliloquy by the brothel owner, in Catch-22. He goes,
oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, we've been taken over by everybody. We'll still be standing. But you, that's a different story.
Yeah.
And I think we're heading down that road. Now, Gordon said, does Larry really believe that Germany would raise up an army and get into it as militarily as they had in World War II and won? I'll let you address that.
Well, it won't be Germany as such, but yes, there is a move afoot, a very strong movement afoot within the European Union to produce a powerful army. And it's in the works. It's going on right now. When you consider that at least two of the European Union nations or at least right now, England is still part of the European Union. You've got England and France are both armed with nuclear weapons. Well, everybody knows that Germany itself was doing, well, not everybody knows, but a lot of people know that Germany itself was doing research on nuclear weapons in South Africa, and that they could produce, they already know how to produce nukes, and could produce them if they wanted to, if the time came that they wanted to do that. What's going to happen is the European Union will become there will be no more sovereign nations. There will be no more France, no more Britain, no more, Poland, whatever. There will be, these will only be language groups. What you're going to have is basically a two-tier system of the main countries, such as Britain and France, and then you'll have countries like Spain and Italy and probably others, Greece, of course. These countries which are not economically advanced, they kind of become the vassal states. But what you'll have is a united Europe, and it will have its own army, its own military, which will, I think, eventually be involved in conflict. And I think that's all brewing in the Middle East. I'm not sure how it's going to come about. I tend to think that the United States will get itself crushed first in what will be the first phase of a World War III, and then there may be a second phase to a World War III, and then eventually the Battle of Armageddon. And at the Battle of Armageddon is, when the Antichrist is confronted by Jesus Christ himself.
All right.
And I think what's going to happen, and one of the reasons why the European Union and the papacy want to go down into the Middle East is because the papacy wants Jerusalem. And that is a very important thing, and it has been. That's what the first Crusades were all about. There were several Crusades. I think there were 3 major Crusades, but they were all about taking Jerusalem. There's a reason for that. And in the Bible, it tells us that the Antichrist will go into the temple, and that is where he will proclaim himself to be God to the world. And I think through satellite communications, you will see that happen if you're here. And I know all this, again, it's very simplistic. I'd have to flesh it out and make it more plain. But yes, I do believe. In fact, I know they're creating a Euro army now. It's coming about, and Germany will lead it because Germany is becoming the Fourth Reich. They're going to lead the new Holy Roman Empire.
All right. Are you familiar with Sherbrigg?
No.
All right. I got to bring this up to you because I was aware of it maybe, I guess, somewhere around 2004 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I bring this up is because this may be exactly what you think is going to rise up. One of the things I think, no matter what, is that the United States is cut out of this deal.
Mm.
And I'm not so sure that the UK isn't involved at all. Now, this also is to the exclusion of what NATO is going to do. Mm. And I think NATO also will,
there won't be a NATO because there won't be any U.S.
Well, that's what I mean. There'll be no such thing as U.S. in the NATO. I think I'm thinking
it'll
of a word.
It'll be a European Union with its own defense, its own military.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if I was going to say the word divest, that NATO will divest itself of the U.S., which is pretty heavy words.
I think there's got to be a major conflict in which the United States is taking the lead in the Middle East, and the United States will come in conflict probably with Russia and maybe with China. And at any rate, the United States will get its butt kicked so badly that we will become a second-rate, third-rate power. We will have to slink back to our own borders, and we will become sort of a vassal state of the European Union. I think that, the whole idea in the one world government is to have a series of unions, with the European Union being the main, that's where the seat of government will be. And I think that, the United States will become part of a tripartite system with being North American Union with Canada, Mexico, and then maybe some of the countries of Central America. I'm not sure. But anyway, I think we'll just be an economic zone, sort of like, basically we'll be a vassal state of the Holy Roman Empire.
Well, everything will be a vassal state of the Holy Roman Empire.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, now let me hit this real quick, and we can pick up on this if you want to. Sherbrig, there is a website, sherbrig.dk. That's spelled SHIRBRIG. Mm-hmm. It is an anagram. I haven't looked at it until you just reminded me now, because this could be what NATO was. And it was born out of Denmark, which I think is interesting. And yet I have to tell you, at one time, I heard one of the crown heads of Denmark giving a speech, and I swear to God, he was speaking in his native tongue. Mm-hmm. And I sat there, and with the language and with the vehemence with which he spoke, I'm like, God, this guy sounds like Hitler. Mm-hmm. And I mean, well, poor Denmark. Well, poor Denmark actually is a pimple on Germany. Mm-hmm. And I'm not so sure that there really is much of a difference anymore between some of the fascist intents of what was usually assigned to Germany that also has spread into Scandinavia, which I'm sorry to say, but I think that's one of the reasons why you saw this latest shooter. I don't think that Scandinavia is as groovy and as pacifist as everyone thinks it is.
Oh, no, not at the top. Not really. I mean, when you get down to it, Sweden had a very large Nazi party that collaborated.
Wait, let me ask you something. You talking in your shoe right now?
I'm sorry. Had the phone at a weird angle.
Don't even tell me about that. I don't want to know.
No, I've shifted it over while I was looking at some papers here. I was trying to come up with something that was relevant, but anyway, I didn't.
Well, at least that was funny.
Okay, at any rate, yeah, is a very large Nazi-style right wing in Sweden, and during World War II, of course, Sweden was neutral, but they collaborated with the Nazis. They were essentially a fascist state, or kind of a vassal state of Germany. I think I'm using vassal state too much, but
probably.
Yeah, they definitely were. They have a very powerful. There is a series of movies that were made from some political / crime novels. Can't remember the guy's name. It's not coming to me right now. But this was all based on this network of Nazi-style powerful people within the Swedish oligarchy, and the first one was called "The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo," and it's basically a story of a young woman who has been the victim of these people, and they have like this weird pedophile ring, and it's all kinds of. It's just really, really strange stuff, really spooky, and this is based on actual fact. It seems that along with Nazism and the extreme right, we also get the occult, satanic, ritual abuse of children, and that's kind of where it starts off. And it's called the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, and it's been made into a movie. It's a very good movie. It's got subtitles. It's in Swedish, but I've seen it, and it has like two sequels to it too, and I don't remember the names of those. But it's all about how the Swedish aristocracy, elite, whatever, has a very large pro-Nazi element within it.
All right, let me just hit you, and I'll leave you with this and everyone else.
Okay.
Because this is interesting, and this might be the answer. Sherbrig is an anagram of sorts for Standby Forces High Readiness Brigade. Just hang with me.
Sounds kind of ominous, doesn't it?
Well, the fact that it's still going and that very few know about it, and there are 16 nations involved in it. And let me just, okay, I got it here. Hold on. In 1995, a statement from the UN, Supplement to an Agenda for Peace, recommended that the UN should consider the idea of a rapid deployment force consisting of units from a number of member states trained to the same standard, using the same operating procedures and interoperable equipment, and taking part in combined exercise at regular intervals. All right, blah, blah, blah. It says in December 1996, Austria, Canada, Denmark, the Netherlands, Norway, Poland, and Sweden signed a letter of intent of cooperating on the establishment of a framework for Sherbrooke. Now, as of November 2007, 16 nations, Argentina, Austria, Canada, Denmark, Finland, Italy, Ireland, Lithuania, the Netherlands, Norway, Poland, Portugal, Romania, Slovenia, Spain, and Sweden have signed on one or more Sherbrooke documents, while 7 more nations, Chile, Croatia, Czech Republic, Egypt, Jordan, Latvia, and Senegal, are participating as observers. The new situation was approved by the nations at the 31st Steering Committee held in Rome on November 14th and 15th, where the Hungarian termination of the observer status in Sherbrooke was discussed and agreed. So I guess they said, I'm out of here. But here's what's interesting. No mention of the UK, no mention of the US, and interestingly, Canada is involved in this. Now, here's another thing.
Yeah, I just can't believe that about the Canadians being involved in something like that.
Well, you know what it is? I mean, I think they're trying to bring hockey to third world.
That may be it.
However,
that may be it.
But here's something interesting as well, and this is something that I think Charles was sending me, and I think Robert Burke might have, and Robert Burke is out there somewhere, but he chose to withdraw from all this, having gone through a real health issue. Robert Burke, if you remember him, Larry, was a straight shooter, somebody who did call in and will be heard actually in the marathon. But, I mean, he was a very astute observer. He's the one that blew the whistle on Chapman, and he was absolutely right.
Yeah, I remember I came in a little bit later than Robert Burke, but I remember the thing about Chapman, and I think, isn't Chapman still associated with Alex Jones?
Yes, and the ironic part is that when he was on with me, he used to run Jones down all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And that's and I've been through that. But yes, Chapman is.
And basically, the guy is a con man. He's a fraud.
No, and all Burke did, and Burke dealt with him. That was the whole thing. Burke dealt with him, and saw something strange going on, and he told me this through a series of weeks. And not that I didn't believe him, but he's going, look, I'm telling you, there's something wrong here. He's pumping and dumping.
Yeah.
And then he found out that he's got all kinds of indictments on him going back to the 80s in the United States. He doesn't come back here because he doesn't like the place. He doesn't come back here because they'll arrest his ass. And he got involved in a Securities and Exchange, an SEC indictment with somebody else, and that happened recently. But Burke had no horse in this race other than that he dealt with Chapman, and he saw when things were not going right, and he kept feeding me this stuff because I had Chapman on almost weekly.
Right.
And sure enough, he was right. And and I dumped him, and a lot of people did. But when he sounded the warning to others, like Cedarstrom from Colorado, they got all pissed off. Forget the fact that he was right. They didn't like to see him go down because they were all in the league.
Right.
So anyway, Burke was onto this stuff, and here's what they told me too, and at least Wilcox, I think, was advanced this the most, and that Canada was hedging its bets more or less by not necessarily excising itself from a North American Union. They were like okay with that, but they were also kind of currying favor with the European Union as if they were going to hedge their bets and be in both.
Oh, I see.
So okay. Canada, and we're talking about the government now, and that's clear. I mean, we have our fun. I mean, governments suck. Right. But Canada is also now involved in this Sherbrooke thing, which looks like it should be a European thing, but as you just heard me recite, it looks like it's going to be...
They've even got African nations in there.
What does Senegal got to do with this? I know, yeah. In Senegal. So what is going on with this? And this is another little quiet thing going on. Rapid deployment, okay, great. So everybody can go to that, and I'll post this link as well, and you can decide for yourself.
Yeah.
But this is something else that's going on, and if you've not known about this and you get a chance to take a look at it, Larry, you might start to realize that this might be exactly what you're thinking about. While NATO is the puppet show going on in front of everyone, this other thing is taking on another life.
Oh yeah, there's going to be a Holy Roman Empire, the last of the resurrections of the Roman Empire, and the Vatican is hot and heavy going to take Jerusalem, and that's going to happen. And the emperor will be at that time will be the Antichrist, and he's going to proclaim himself to be God in the temple, and this will be what the Bible calls the abomination of desolation. It's like a pivotal event during the tribulation.
Yeah,
and that will be the point when everything heats up to finally the Battle of Armageddon. And I mean, all the major powers in the world, all the major military powers in the world, are building up. I mean, it's just like people must have sat around just prior to World War II back in the 1930s. I know there were quite a few intellectuals and people that kept up with current events and were very concerned, you know, and especially a lot of young intellectuals, and they would write about it, they would talk about it, they would even, you know, but there really didn't seem to be much that they could do. In particular, George Seldes and the other American correspondents during the time of the Spanish Civil War were trying to tell the American public that this was a dress rehearsal for a Second World War, and they couldn't get their message through because the Roman Catholic Church had too many people, had too much power in this country, especially on the New York Times. Seldes goes into that. I'd like to talk about that sometime in the future. We talk about censorship and how that the Roman Catholic powers kept that news from getting to the American public.
Okay. By the way, when you go to the Sherbrooke website, you got to look at one of their missions, because I mean, I didn't even know this thing happened.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go through it right now, but it's like this stuff is going on. We have no idea. I will say this. You'll appreciate hearing this, although I still think it's not making sense to me. Seldes apparently chirped in on what I would call the alleged coup of Wall Street versus FDR. And I'm going to
know that.
Neither did I. And I mean, we respect him. Still, something's not making sense to me in this whole thing. Mm-hmm. But Seldes also had opined on this, and I'll send you the links to see so you can see what he wrote about it.
Yeah.
Again, very interesting. That's a murky time, no doubt about it. But these are the things that go on that are rarely remembered and certainly not recorded in history. No big deal anymore. But for listeners,
you know, one thing that he wrote about that was extremely interesting to me was he talked to Hindenburg right at the end of the First World War, just as it was ending, and right, I guess maybe within the week after the armistice, he went to Germany and talked to Hindenburg, and Hindenburg told him that yes, we lost the war on the battlefield because the United States had come in with fresh troops, and there was just really nowhere to go after that. We couldn't fight them off. We knew we were going to lose. Of course, if that had ever become public, it was censored. It was not. I don't. At first I couldn't understand why it was censored. Then it dawned on me. Well, the reason it was censored was if the public had known, the general public in Europe and the United States had known that was the reason, then there would have been no way for the Nazis to have used the stab in the back theory. That's what Hitler and Ludendorff were using was, yes, we were stabbed in the back by the Jews and the socialists and the communists, and that's not what happened at all. They lost on the battlefield because they had taken on too many countries, and it was destined for them to use that ploy to the people, to make the people believe that Germany had been stabbed in the back when in fact it had just lost, due political causes.
Well, again, I think that was an orchestrated war. I think that Germany obviously was becoming a power. But, I mean, all the heads of state know what's going on. I'm just wondering if that war was a war to punish Germany. And I'm sorry, but all roads do lead to Rome. And I think that's a statement that should not be discounted whatsoever.
There's something I need to add here to clear something up. I had forgotten that the Kaisers were Hohenzollerns. In other words, the royal family of Prussia. They were not Habsburgs. However, the Habsburgs come into play because the Habsburgs were the ruling house of Austria, and
right.
Austria-Hungary and Germany were in league together during the First World War.
They were Romanists.
And that's where the influence of the Habsburgs were basically the protectors of the Roman Catholic Church, and that's why there was a strong bond there between the Second Reich and the Vatican.
Well, and also when Bismarck came on the scene, he was not a Catholic.
No, he wasn't. In fact, what happened was, though, that due to the left wing, the machinations of the left wing in Germany, the Roman Catholic Church became an ally with the Junkers, or the Hohenzollerns. So, in other words, about midway through the Second Reich, it sort of it went from being Protestant and being somewhat anti-Catholic to being tolerant of Catholicism and more favorable toward the Vatican because they helped them out in their struggle against the left.
All right, putting it simply, I think what happened was World War I was to smack Germany around and get it back in line. Once it got back in line, that Rome obviously had a stooge in Hitler, and Hitler knew exactly what he was leading his country into and how it would end up.
Well, I think it's pretty much the scenario is what was the Pike-Mazzini letter, which I really believe to be fake, but I think that the scenario laid out there by whoever wrote it and whenever it was written, it was a series of 3 world wars to bring about world government, and that's the way it's gone down, and we're just on the tip of experiencing the Third World War. And I think the Third World War may come in several stages. It may be a lot longer. When you get down to it, the Second World War started in 1931. It didn't start in 1939. It started in 1931 when the Japanese attacked Manchuria. And that was the beginning of the Japanese Empire, pushing out of its boundaries within Japan and conquering territory in Manchuria and then on in China. So you had a period of really 14 years that the Second World War lasted. I think the first shots fired in the Third World War were in New York City on 9/11. I think that was the beginning of the Third World War, just the opening stages of it. And I think it's going to take quite a while to unfold, but I think when Afghanistan and Iraq were brought under attack by the United States, that was just ramping it up.
No, I mean
that's just my opinion.
It would be very hard to sell the peoples of the world on what's coming down the pike unless it wasn't looked at as being very much needed. I mean, it's like what we said. My take is you're not going to get martial law in the United States unless you ask for it. They're not going to come rolling in one day. You're going to plead for it. And that's what I think goes back to that Satanist, what's his face? Henry Kissinger, making his crack about how the United States, people would be like upset. You know that quote.
Yeah.
They would be upset if foreign troops came into the country, but there'll come a time when they'll beg for them. Don't forget that. I think that's a very viable scenario. So, I mean, with all that's going to transpire, yes, I think it's very orchestrated. It's going to take a while to happen. And the seeds of it have already been planted, as you said.
Yeah, I think we're just in the opening stages of it. And I think there's going to be, I know there's going to be a third world war. I'm just convinced of that. But I think it may take place in the major part of the war would take place in 2 stages in the Middle East. And I think in that first stage, the United States has to get bumped off as a power. And I think that will be the first stage. And then the second stage will bring in the European Union, which I now call the Holy Roman Empire.
But there has to be something that's going to allow the people to go for such a rule. Mm-hmm. And that's where I was going. You got, everybody knows the story. World War I, League of Nations, didn't work. World War II, United Nations, everybody laughs at it. You shouldn't, because it's
pretty nasty.
It's on steroids, and it's got everything ready, I guess you could say administratively, for this brave new world to come. So what are we looking for? We're looking for a third world war where something can promise peace at all costs, and everybody's going to be like, wow, man, we really need that. So what would make people want to feel that way? A third world war. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, of course, they're going to get peace, but it's the old story, not through harmony, but by totalitarianism and the complete lack of acceptance and allowance of dissent.
Right.
Forget about that, man. That's done.
Yeah.
So you're right. And, of course, religion will be a big player in this as the reasons, as they'll record in history books about why there was a war. Well, there was these Christians and Jews and Muslims, and they couldn't get along. So we're all going to – yeah, right. And let's face it, it's true, though, Larry. I mean, whether it's a corporation, whether it's the state, as even Tom had written, I didn't read that part of the email to you, but you can take a look at the National Football League and call that a god.
You want to experience the very best of life, you must believe that you deserve the best.
I mean, you can. I mean, you can call anything you want that people revere enough a
Or
religion.
you can worship a rock if you like,
I mean, yeah. But I mean, religion doesn't have to be something necessarily aligned with what we now call spirituality. Who knows? It's just something you worship because it's good to you.
Yeah.
Now think about that. Think about
worshiping
something.
You can create any kind of idol you want,
There you go.
And you can worship that thing, and you can put all your hopes and dreams into it. It's not going to do you any good, but you can do that. People have done that. I mean, there are people that I think really do worship sports in a sense, I mean, I know people that get way too much into it, and it kind of detracts from the rest of their life. But
look, in the Ten Commandments it's stated, have no other gods before me. That comes right from Jehovah. Mm-hmm. And he meant gods. Now, it wasn't gods with a capital G, but it was gods. Mm-hmm. And the question is, what do we make gods of what we, quote, like, love, worship? Mm-hmm. And that's where it is.
Yeah.
And, I'm going to tell you, I mean, I get indicted because I go to something and, here's the Bible, and why am I not reading in my chapter every day? Oh, I forgot because I was watching football.
Yeah.
That's it. I mean, that's all he's saying. What is it that you're a God? And we all got to take, I'm not somebody who's not going to watch the NFL. Don't get me wrong. But the point is, what are your priorities? And do you save time?
Well, it's just like people that just get into the movies so heavily, and then they start getting into the personalities of the stars of the movies. Actors and actresses have become 10 gods in our day.
Sure.
I mean, Johnny Depp, or whoever it is, some famous. There are movie stars that are literally almost,
they
are.
You
might as well have a church to them, and just go worship, images of these people.
But two things. One, we have, first of all, the founding fathers, and that's the thing I will get on to maybe some other time. And that is, there is something that's very strong in America that really never existed. But it's the one thing I think, the chain that will be pulled time and again, and that everybody thinks, or these Christians think, that there is some kind of direct relationship between Jehovah and the creation and maintenance of the United States. Baloney. Secondly, and here's something that really hits me, and of course, talk is cheap. But you know what? I'm always caught with this, visual of Jesus Christ being very passive and polite. Somebody who does not open a door but will come in if you open it. Who sits on the sideline and as we go running about in our lives saying, hey, you get time for me? No, you don't have time for me. Hey, oh, okay. Do you know what I mean? Mm. And that's where we're at. And I mean,
it's not within God's nature to force anybody to worship Him. It's not within His nature, I mean, when you consider the story of Jesus Christ and what He did, and his life, and then his sacrifice upon the cross. I mean, nothing else could be done. You know, if someone is not going to respond after understanding that, after understanding what he did, then, you know, that's their problem at that point.
In a very crass way, I'll just make somewhat of an object example of this, and that is, I think about that song by Henry Chapin, The Cat in the Cradle.
Yeah.
And the father now realizes his son, just as he had no time for his father.
Right.
His son has no time for him because, well, you know, just got things to do. And then and that's what I think of, you know, and that is that he's there, and it's like, you know, when you guys find time, and this is like part of the founder of this world, you know.
Right.
I mean, we have no idea with whom we ignore. But at any rate, be that as it may, the one thing that also is a sticking point in this country, which I feel will lead to its ruin, and you get last shot on this, and we will pull the plug, and that is, I resent the fact that in the era of the New Covenant, although it does not obviate everything out of the Old Testament, it certainly is a new covenant that supplants the old one because we're not under law but by grace. What I don't like is when Christians jump over Jesus Christ, pulling stuff out of the Old Testament that no longer applies. Do you have a problem with that?
No. You know, we're no longer under the law. You know, Christ came to complete everything. I mean, the sacrifice has been done on the cross. I mean, it's just like the Apostle Paul said, you know, for by grace are you saved, and that not of yourselves, lest any man should boast. You can't work your way into heaven, and Jesus and the Father, Lord God Jehovah, do not need your help in straightening the world out.
Right.
They do not need your help. What they need you to do is to worship them and to live by the principles that Jesus Christ taught us.
And to share that.
These dominionists, they really make me angry because they have the audacity, the gall, to act like God wants us to go out and kill people and take over the world. I mean, it's ridiculous. Jesus said, you know, for my kingdom is not of this world. You know, I mean, what else did he have to say before these fools get it? You know, that he does not need your help in doing that. You know, in taking this world, it's not his kingdom anyway.
No,
it belongs to Satan.
The bit about going ahead and taking up swords was at a time.
Exactly.
And that was in the Old Testament.
And Jesus seemed to be frustrated. You know, he seemed to. It used to in the story of the Gospels. It seems that Jesus was frustrated with the ignorance of the apostles and their inability to understand what he was really trying to tell them. And he must be just as frustrated today with the way that human beings act now, because the same thing's going on. And there are people who are supposedly Christians, who supposedly read the Bible, who are running around talking about taking over the world.
No problem. Yep.
Just don't make it. That doesn't make any sense.
No, and I think our demise will have a great deal to do with those who claim they're Christians and are not, and have perverted the word and also the covenants to a point where, you know, it says that the elect would be deceived. Well, I'll tell you what, those who go along with it cannot be the elect. And I mean, like, we all got warts and we talked about this, but the thing is, we kind of understand the way things go and who runs the show, and how people are who are finding somehow justifications for this, you know, in a scriptural sense, are going back to a time that is now past. You know, we're not told to wipe out the Abyssinians because they've been.
Well, what they want to do is they want to go back to the Old Testament, and they talk about they love the parts where the Hebrews went in and slaughtered somebody. You know, there are numerous accounts in the Old Testament where they would go in and slaughter some group, you know, in a war, you know, and that they take as justification for what they want to do to the Muslims in particular.
Yep.
You know, and it's like, don't you get it? You know, I mean, that's over. You know, and the reason they were doing what they did, I think, was like a genetic thing. You know, it gets very complicated, but
no,
you know, God does not want you as a Christian. Jesus Christ did not teach others to kill. He did not teach you to kill your fellow man. He did not teach you to hurt your fellow man. In fact, he taught the opposite. But that isn't good enough for them. What Jesus said is not good enough for them because they aren't really Christians to start with. They don't have that regeneration within their heart. Their heart and mind does not belong to Jesus Christ. No. They are still living within the flesh, within the natural. It's not natural if somebody punches you in the mouth to turn the other cheek and let him hit you again. That's not natural. The natural inclination is to try to take his head off. But Jesus taught us, turn the other cheek.
But they
don't like that because that doesn't fit the scheme.
But take that one step further, and that is for somebody who you don't like, who doesn't hit you, but because you think they're bad, that you should still go after them.
Right.
That's the thing that gets me. I mean, I can understand a natural reaction when you're not looking for trouble, but to look for trouble, to go ahead and say, okay, we're the ones who have decided that we're the that we know best, and that if there are people out there who don't believe the way we should eliminate them. One last thing. Do you remember the story I told you that I was told by a professor in 1970? What did I have? I had, was it Western Civilization, 101.
Yeah.
And it was a story that all right, if I have told you, suffer me.
Okay.
But you see, when he told me this, I didn't get it. And now I look back and I'm like, aha. He was referring, I won't even try to think of it, Raditza. He was some European. Raditza was his name.
Yeah.
And he was telling a story about Jesus during the Inquisition, like in Spain.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And of course, the Inquisition, like, boom, you're going, boom, you're going. Everyone would come up to the table and the Inquisitor would question him. Mm-hmm. Boom, yeah, you're going. You're all going to execution. Jesus is in a line. And Jesus comes up to the table, and the Inquisitor looks up from his seat and says, "Oh, Jesus, Savior, blah, blah, blah. Look at what we're doing to advance your kingdom. We're killing all these people." And Jesus said, "But that's not what I wanted." Boom, he got sent to the execution. But doesn't it make sense, though? Isn't that exactly the point?
And that's exactly what happened in his day.
Thank you.
He told, the reason that the Jews brought him to the Roman Empire to execute him, the reason the Jews brought him up on charges was that he was saying he was the Son of God. And they thought he was blaspheming. They accused him of it.
Or is it the fact that they knew he was, but they were phonies, the Pharisees and the Sadducees?
They refused to believe.
There you go.
They wanted, he was going to cut into their whole little scheme there.
Exactly. Exactly. So they knew.
Oh, they knew. How could Jesus have done all the miracles that he did, and them not? How could they not catch on that this is? And they didn't apparently read the Old Testament because it foreshadowed that Jesus would be executed. It foreshadowed it in the Old Testament. There's numerous things in the Old Testament which talk about how the Savior would be rejected when he came, but they didn't pay any attention to that. They just went ahead and followed through on the plan because that's the way it was planned out, and they did the bidding of Satan, and they essentially did the bidding of God in a way too, because that's the way it was supposed to be.
It was foretold, so yes. So there's not a point where you can get on anybody for what happened. It was meant to be the way it was.
That's another thing of these people that the Jews are Christ killers. Well, if Jesus hadn't been killed on the cross and hadn't died on the cross for your sins, you would have no out. Well, it had to be that way. So you're going to go and persecute people 2,000 years later who had nothing to do with it. It just doesn't make any sense.
But well, think about this. Those Jews have been identified, quote, supposed Jews, by those who we would call Jew bashers, for lack of a more delicate term. Mm-hmm. I'm like, well, do you think the Rothschilds really observe Chabad? I mean,
absolutely not. The Rothschilds are probably Satanists.
Do you think that some of these Christian leaders are actually abiding by Scripture? No. So
way.
Even back in that day, whoever the Jewish people were people like everywhere. But what I find interesting is that Jesus had some marked words for what we would call four groups of people. lawyers, bankers, Sadducees, and Pharisees, because they were whitewashed sepulchres. Because they were all clanging cymbals. They talked the talk, but they didn't walk the walk. And they're the ones that sent them up the river. And those people I would consider as much Jews as I would consider, like, this table I'm looking at.
Right.
And that's the same way. So in other words, no, there's a faction of people across all cultures, religions, and places that are, let's face it, they are messengers of Satan. They serve him. And to call them anything other than that.
And some of them do it willingly. Some of them even invoke rituals and have secret societies which are dedicated to the promotion of the things that Satan wants done in this world. That's the really scary part to me. I can understand somebody just being a tool and being an unwitting tool, but when somebody enlists himself in the service of Satan, as apparently Adolf Hitler did,
absolutely,
it's just really, it's frightening. It's really scary that a person, I mean, don't you get it about hellfire? Don't you get it about eternal torment and eternal separation from God? That's going to be your reward. Your reward is hell. And these people apparently it just doesn't bother them. They don't buy into it.
But you see, that's the great deception. And you exchange what? I mean, it goes back to really the legend. And I mean, as my brain was starting to awaken, because I mean, I didn't want to go to college, but I mean, there were college courses that hit me. And this is at a time when if I wasn't in college, guess where I'd be? Yeah, and I'm going to tell you straight. I mean, if I got a 1S deferment, I'm staying in school. Plus, I had the scholarship. But anyway, I mean, I'm reading stuff that I never read before because I really now was paying attention in college. And I think back to having to read two things. One was Faustus by Marlowe, Dr. Faustus, and also Goethe's Faustus. But the thing that struck me about Marlowe's was making a deal with the devil. Of course, he was that supposedly is based on a legend, which may not be a myth, about Faustus having a familiar spirit, which we now know is Mephistopheles, if you remember that, right? Usually embodies itself in a black cat, blah, blah, blah. But the thing is, it's all a lie. It's all the anti-Christian message or a Christ message, and that is Satan, too, will give you eternal life. And he definitely will. But you don't know that you're being hornswoggled. So, I mean, it all goes back to that, the promise of...
They trade everything for power. They trade their own immortal soul for power.
But look, I mean, but in a sense, and understand how I'm saying this, quote, can you blame them? Look at Kissinger. Look at Brzezinski. Look at Mao. Look at Stalin. Look at Hitler. Look at Rockefeller. I mean, the way they lived, the power they had, what they enjoyed, and they're thinking they're going to trade this in when their mortal coil is shirked for eternity in whatever they consider Valhalla. And they're going to wind up in a dirt room.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
You'll be stoking the furnaces for the rest of your life. Well, there is no rest of your life. I mean, it's timeless. So my point is, no, listen. Look, we see today how people that we thought knew better or believed better can be deceived. And I would submit you can't be deceived unless you want to be. Okay? But it happens all the time. It will continue forever. And the thing that we have to watch out for ourselves is, as much as we pop off, that we don't become a victim of the same thing.
Right.
That's what's important. And so all these promises beyond this earth of riches and such, you can understand how these people believed in that.
Yeah.
They went for it. And they were definitely well taken care of on their time on this earth. But the point is, Satan's a liar, and he doesn't like anybody.
Yeah, his whole agenda is to destroy mankind.
No, and his minions who serve him so well. Okay, there you go. So, I mean, that's the history of the world, and that's really what it comes down to. What's the history of the world? Good versus evil. Case closed. See you later.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at now. So, as we get into these somewhat early stages of the late stages, if you will, this stuff is starting to take shape. I'm trying to figure out more than maybe I should, and maybe that's not the point, because it does take time. And as you well know, Larry, a lot of people are always quick to the fore to predict stuff, and it doesn't happen. For some strange reason, people keep waiting for their next wrong prediction, and I'm amazed by it. But the thing is to sit back, you know where this thing is going, you can prepare for it. And exactly when it all falls into place, we don't know the time of the hour, but at least we know it's happening.
Yeah.
So, all right. You got any final shot? Otherwise, I'll really, really, really hang up on you.
I was just going to read another thing from Seldes, and it's from a book called The Economics of Barbarism. Talking about fascist economics. It's real short.
All right, just do me a favor, only because time has passed. Just give us a thumbnail about Seldes, because we actually believe this guy is one of the good guys, journalistically. Yeah. And then, please, by all means, finish off with that.
Okay. A thumbnail on Seldes?
Yeah, I mean, look, most people don't know about him. And I mean, you brought him to my eyes only in the last, 2 years?
Seldes was basically a investigative journalist. He was a muckraker, sort of. And he wrote quite a few books, and he especially was critical. He lived in Mussolini's Italy and was thrown out of there. In fact, almost got himself killed there because he was critical of fascism. He also lived in Soviet Union during the time of Lenin, just prior to Stalin. He was thrown out of the Soviet Union for the same thing. He was critical of the communist regime there. He wrote quite a few books. The one I'm kind of like is one I've been reading from, Facts and Fascism by George Seldes. He also wrote books that were very critical of the Vatican. He was a war correspondent during the Spanish-American War, and like I said earlier, he tried to get out the truth about the Spanish-American War. That essentially it was the Roman Catholic Church had gotten Mussolini and Hitler to invade Spain and help out the Spanish fascists, and that's basically who he was. He lived to be 105 years old. He died in 1995. He was quite an amazing character.
Yeah, he was. Yep. So lay it
on us. But at any rate, I'll just read this. It tells you about fascist economic strategy, and this is from a book called Economics of Barbarism. The three principles of fascist economic strategy are: to achieve the economic subjugation of a conquered nation, it is essential to control the heavy industries. First principle of Nazi economic strategy: keep intact, build up, and above all else, take into their own hands the heavy industries. That's what they would do when they conquered somebody. Fascist economy centers on war production, since it has no interest in the welfare of the masses of people and prefers to depress wages of workers and farmers and lower their standard of living. Goods for popular consumption are of secondary importance. Since all the big industrialists are linked with fascism, it is a policy to give the consumer goods manufacturers a monopoly for all of Europe. There is therefore a tendency toward decentralization of heavy industries, with centralization in Germany of consumer goods industry. The Nazi principle is kill consumption goods industries outside Germany. And the third principle is to increase the number of millions dependent upon agriculture with a corresponding increase in the holdings of the great landed proprietors. This pays back the Junkers, who financed Hitler and provided material for the chemical industry and profits the same industry in the sale of artificial fertilizers. And pursues a policy of complete self-independence or autarky. Anyway, the principles of barbarism, conclude the authors, would be realized: put back the technical and economic structure of certain parts of Europe 100 years or more, while overdeveloping an economy in other parts of the continent. In other words, pushing back into feudalism. And I think that's what's happening. They're going to push this country back into feudalism.
That is the plan.
Yeah, that's it.
They told us it's going to be a new dark ages and a new feudalism.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way they wish it. How far they get along, who knows, but that's where it's headed.
Yeah.
It will last for a time, but as we understand and believe, it will be defeated. And
the second coming of Jesus Christ will be a real revelation of these people. And it will, he's going to set everything right. And that's where it'll stay. It'll stay right after his advent.
All right. This is part 13, and I'm going to ask you to hang on there.
Sure.
At least we can talk about the links that I want to put up with this. And there's a couple of things throughout this conversation that I'll put up, including that Sherbrooke link as well. That's pretty interesting stuff to look at as far as an eye to the future and why there might be a little shell game going on with the supposed demise of NATO and something else rising up. We'll see. Mm-hmm. All right, thanks for being with us. I appreciate it. We'll see you down the road. And this has been Port 13. Oh, no, not that number. With Larry the Contractor Guy.